Welcome to the October edition of the Baltimore SharePoint Users Group. Hopefully you can see my screen. Let's double check. I will jump right into this session. Yes, okay. Perfect. Okay, welcome to this month's edition of the Baltimore SharePoint Users Group. A few technical difficulties with streaming live. Nothing goes perfect, but the show always goes on. And I'm Shadi Laser, co-founder of this wonderful group. And so we'll get into this month's session. Okay. So for those of you who are new to the Baltimore SharePoint Users Group, we started way back in calendar year 2007 as a resource for early adopter companies for MOS 2007. Since then, of course, there's been new releases of SharePoint, both on-prem and in the cloud. And with the latest iterations of Microsoft 365, Power Platform, and all flavors of AI, today we continue to stand virtually. And so let's go into a few highlights of the group. And so we are the longest running Microsoft Focus community institution. Over 4,500 Microsoft professionals trained and certified, and several practices launched within that time period. And so what I'm most proud about with the group and with our consistency overall is to see those individuals who have gone forward from, let's say, being members and going on to launch their own companies, so on and so forth. There's some streaming issues with the slide, but here we are. Special thanks to ProObject. And when we met in person, ProObject has been our meeting location. When we return to back in-person sessions each month, we look to continue to meet at ProObject. And so ProObject has openings each month for various positions, of which a knowledge of SharePoint and or the Microsoft 365 platform is needed. And so if you have questions regarding your employment, your current employment status, or if things are changing on the horizon, I highly recommend that you reach out to Ted Staley, Theodore Staley, TM Staley at proobject.com. That is TM Staley at proobject.com, as you can obviously see on the screen. Moving along. I'd like to especially thank our streaming partners, those who are streaming this broadcast live on their channels or for their organizations. Special thanks to you. And so in terms of community news and events, Shift Happens just took place last week. Shift Happens is a conference hosted by AvePoint, which brings together the brightest minds to discuss the changes within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem Great event. Special thanks to AvePoint for extending invites to the Baltimore SharePoint community. So shift happens. Make sure you go online and look for any recaps and videos from the talented speakers who took place in that event. And so next is the Community Days North American Summit. And so I'm going to walk through the communitydays.org website just so you have an idea of what is out there. And so let me see here. Okay, let's try this. So communitydays.org has a section for upcoming events. Let's see here, refresh. Okay, so as you can see, the community days, scroll up. Still loading, there you go. So from October 15th to 20th, so the North American Summit is wrapping up tomorrow. And so coming up in terms of events of interest, or let's say within the continental US, we have 365 EduCon Chicago coming up, paid event. You also have November 7th and 8th, the Dynamics User Group Conference, or the Southeast Regional in Atlanta, Georgia. You have Microsoft 365 Twin Cities in Minnesota. And so for many of us, speakers in the Microsoft space have planned will travel, meaning if you know where it is on the calendar, then you can fly there and participate. But it helps to get ahead and get on the call for speakers. So keep this in mind as a resource for your upcoming speaking activities and events. So Collab Days New England will also be October 21st, 2023, which is a free community event. So on community days, many organizers post their events. And so you can, if you're looking to learn and attend, this is great for smaller practices to gain access to free training, or let's say high value training that will benefit your teams. Many companies such as Liquid Mercury, DNA Solutions, with our region, will send entire teams to these events. And they're great ways to learn and also make new contacts. So take advantage, take advantage. And so as mentioned, going into November, you have the following lineup. Depending on where you are in the world, there is a Community Days event near you. And so stay tuned and take advantage. Moving along. Okay, so back to so keep in mind that those events are coming up. I'm going to skip ahead. There we go. Now, fiscal year 2023 is here. October welcomes in the new fiscal year. And so we're opening a call for speakers for each month to deliver our virtual sessions. And so the types of sessions that we're looking for are technical deep dive or going to some of the definitions of each. So a technical deep dive typically is 45 to, let's say, 75 minutes. And we don't necessarily say that 45 versus 75 is better or worse. It all depends on the speaker, their command of the topic, and engagement. And so technical deep dive is something the benefit of a technical deep dive with our audience is that our audience tends to be more active with feedback. So if a speaker is looking to sharpen their presentation for a community days event or larger Microsoft conference, then this is beneficial. And so it almost gives you a opportunity to sharpen the topic before putting it on the big stage. And so moving along. Break fix, meaning you were at work and you were working on a solution or responding to a problem, and you're sharing what you are able to learn from that break fix and the lessons from it. Finally, lessons learned. So you've gone through a deployment, you've gone through a new requirement, and this lesson learned will help others repeat basically shorten the learning curve for that. So technical deep dive, break fix, lesson learned. Moving along. In terms of community events related to the Baltimore SharePoint Users Group, 2024 return of SPS Baltimore. It will be rebranded as probably M365 Baltimore, but looking at March timeframe, going to put together the band, all the people who organize and have helped this event to be what it has been. I would say it will be more than likely an in-person event. It will not be virtual, I can tell you that, but there may be some, let's say, allowance for a hybrid speaker or basically someone in the room to facilitate a virtual session. We will have some slots available for that to accommodate speakers who cannot make the trip, but have been part of our long time run over the years. And so be on the lookout for that. As details are announced, we will make those available. Now, let's transition into a few valuable tips. Effective requirements gathering for senior Microsoft professionals. For almost a decade of my life, my work was involved with coming into organizations as an outside consultant and evaluating the, let's say, technical business and operations layers as it relates to technology and the underlying processes. And so requirements in themselves definitely show when it comes to what you build, how long it lasts, and the adoption, meaning the usability of that particular solution. So missing the mark on effective requirements gathering can be one of the top 2 or 3 most expensive evolutions for a company, with number 1 being meetings. Meetings will always be the number 1 evolution for a company, but missing the mark on requirements can require rework, additional hours spent on a solution, and purchasing or procurement of new solutions due to the fact that the solution that was built does not meet the mark. And so I'm going to cover a few areas. Could be non-conventional for some, and some there may be some things that you can start to consider. And so first would be utilize templates and tools. So within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem, you have Microsoft Forms, you have planners, and you can use these solutions to standardize your requirements collection process, which will ensure that no essential requirement is overlooked. A requirement that is not documented does not exist. You want your documentation to tell the story over time, meaning if someone leaves the organization, a key stakeholder, for example, at least you can capture what the thought process was at that time and make decisions in real time in terms of what needs to be built. So your templates, for example, can provide a structured format, and this makes your data more manageable. So you can use tools such as Microsoft Teams to create smooth communication as well as collaboration amongst your stakeholders. So think about the tools that you have at your disposal that you're most comfortable with and that the organization currently uses, and how can you facilitate communication and standardize data collection and increase documentation. And so within the 365 or Microsoft 365 toolkit or tool set, you have a range of applications that you can kind of work together in order to make sure you have smooth requirements gathering. I would say also next would be continuous feedback loops. So you want to have numerous checkpoints throughout your requirements gathering. And so baking those into your overall process is the way to go. So regularly engaging with your stakeholders to validate requirements to ensure that they align with business goals and user needs is essential. So again, there's communication, a human element, and then you back that up with platforms such as Teams, for example, so that you have that continuous feedback loop and you keep everyone on the same page. What this does is, as you discover new information, you can always refine those requirements and adapt to any changes in real time. And so, as I mentioned with the next, prioritizing and documenting requirements. So all gathered requirements should be documented and organized in a place where everyone who has a need to know can access those. So utilizing tools such as OneNote, SharePoint libraries, team sites, etc., will allow for you to maintain a requirements-focused repository of documents and make those accessible to all relevant parties. When you prioritize your requirements based on business needs, feasibility, and stakeholder importance, what you do is you help to single out what is necessary as well as impactful. Next, you want to consider the compliance and security ramifications of the solution that you're building. And so when we talk about today's world, pretty much post 9/11, security and compliance are essential. Let's say points of consideration when gathering requirements, especially with cloud services such as Microsoft 365. And so you want to make sure that your IT security team, as well as your network administration team and legal department, have an understanding of what you're building. You want to understand what their overlap or their sphere of influence is regarding the solution that you're building. And so in some cases, if let's say there are notifications that need to be sent company-wide, legal may need to look at those requirements. If there are passwords that need to be provisioned for databases or otherwise, then of course your IT team needs to be included, and security should have a look at anything that you're looking to build. And so these are factors that you want to definitely make sure are a significant part of your requirements gathering process. And so in terms of finally, interview process as well as collaborative workshops. So within your process, you want to encourage an environment where your stakeholders can express their needs, requirements, and expectations openly. So you want to organize interviews and potentially workshops with your end users, department heads, and key decision makers in order to open a line of communication, which will lead to the collection of detailed and varied requirements. With that process, I would also advocate that you have to document your process for collecting information. Otherwise, your requirements gathering will turn into a therapy session. And you want to give your end users the opportunity to share their likes and dislikes, but it needs to be focused so that you get the results versus the pain points. You need to have documentation in addition to the pain points that come from the wins and losses of that existing system or legacy system, and as you move forward to building a new solution in its place. And so those are 5 effective requirements gathering tips for Microsoft 365 senior professionals. And so on behalf of the Baltimore SharePoint users group, I am Shadidi Laser. Oh, Ted raised his hand. Hold on. Give me a second here. Yes, Ted, unmute. Or type your question in the Q&A, either unmute or Q&A. There we go. Okay, so just got a new job. One of our former developers was successful in applying CSS to a SharePoint list. I assume creating an extension with JSON instructions, no documentation left behind, of course. Where would you guess one would find a command line to create such an extension in such a lockdown environment? So let's see. CSS to a SP list via creating an extension. In this case, you may need to rework the solution if there's no documentation in terms of how it was built. You may need to look, well, you can go potentially within database, but I'll tell you what, since I have your email, I will come back to you with 2 or 3 different solutions, because there's a bit of detective work that you may need to reference. So you can definitely check the SharePoint list as well, if there's a reference file within the list. Also the CSS as well. Let's see. So we'll have to look at a few different solutions. So I'll organize that and send it to you. And you're welcome. There's a few ways to go into that, or to kind of reverse engineer, since you don't have the documentation. The question is, how did the developer basically reference the list? Let's say one solution may be JSON, but if you're not 100% sure, then there's a few ways to go about it. So I'll get the tools together and send those over to you. Let's see, by Monday. So that will be the answer for that. Okay, on behalf of the Baltimore SharePoint Users Group, I'm Shad Didi Laser, and thank you for tuning in to this session this month. Join me next month for a featured speaker to be announced. Thank you very much.